Welcome to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam.
Well, last slot of the day. Is this working? Yeah, okay, excellent. I'm sure everyone wants to get in the beers, so I will zip through it. Fear not. You might want to listen to this though, because it might stop you getting whacked or put in prison. So, big claims. Our story begins in 2006 with Wikileaks. Initially, they focused on leaks mainly on authoritarian regimes in Asia, ex-USSR countries, Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And in fact, in the early days, they were accused of being a CIA mouthpiece. But sometime around 2010, that changed slightly. In April of 2010, they published classified footage of Apache gunship shooting some Reuters journalists in Iraq. And later on that year, they, as a result, released some insurance files encrypted, so that in the case that their operation got compromised, they could release the keys for the insurance files, and it would act as a deterrent to the authorities compromising WikiLeaks. Later that year, they released the Afghanistan war files, and then an arrest warrant was issued for Julian Assange, who was at the time the leader of WikiLeaks. In October of that year, they released the Iraq war files, showing that civilian casualties actually outweighed enemy combatant casualties in Iraq. And in November, they released the diplomatic cables from the US, which was cables from over 300 different institutions throughout the world. In December then, an arrest warrant was issued for Julian Assange, and he was put in house arrest in the UK. And later on, he then was holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy for years, and finally, in 2019, he was put in Belmarsh prison in the UK. Before that, a whole bunch of other insurance files, hundreds of gigabytes, were leaked to the public, encrypted with AES, but the keys were never released, even when Julian Assange got put into prison. To this day, we don't really know why. Perhaps people at WikiLeaks had second thoughts. They thought maybe this nuclear bomb was just too intense. Perhaps the people who had the keys got compromised themselves or got taken out covertly by some naughty governments. I guess ultimately we'll never know. And although Julian was eventually released, well, after pleading guilty to espionage, not everyone was quite so lucky. Some other parties here who may or may not have had dead man switches. On the left-hand side, we've got Dr. David Kelly. He was a biological weapons expert in the British government who famously blew the whistle that the Iraq war was started on somewhat tenuous intelligence. It was leaked to the press that he was the guy who blew the whistle, and he was taken into court, into a secret court, and very soon after was found dead, and some of the details that he was blowing the whistle on were never released. Fortunately, didn't have a dead man switch, so we'll never know what he knew. The middle guy is Dmitry Sklarov. He was a security researcher who found a DRM bypass in Adobe software, and Adobe, being nice and close and paying the right lobbying fees in the US, was able to get Dmitry brought into court. Charges were eventually dropped, and he went free. Again, didn't have a dead man switch, so if he got whacked by the secret Adobe service, we might never know the details. The man on the far right, that's I think everyone probably knows that's Edward Snowden. Famously leaked troves of information about the NSA spying on Americans and people abroad. He actually did have a dead man switch that he presumably developed himself, and he gave encrypted files to a bunch of journalists, and presumably if he had been captured or killed, the encryption keys would have been released. But fundamentally here, the point to note is that there are no widely available open source tools for whistleblowers, which would be nice to have. So fast forward a little bit to 2002. I started working in a company called Protocol Labs on a team called DRAND. DRAND is a global threshold network operated by the League of Entropy, providing randomness as a public good. So basically a whole bunch of institutions work together do multi-party computation to provide random numbers that can't be biased by any of those institutions and also can't be predicted. And you never have to trust a single organization to know that your numbers are truly random. To explain a little bit about how this works, which will be interesting later, DRAM's basically like a cryptographic clock. So every 3 seconds, the League of Entropy work together to sign a message. Those messages can't be predicted until they're emitted, and they're verifiable after the fact because they're derived from signatures. So we consider them randomness beacons. In 2023, the team built the world's first practical time lock encryption scheme on top of DRAM. So basically, you can encrypt some message now that can't be decrypted until some future time has come. We reflected on how this could be useful for a dead man switch. You could encrypt some trove of data now and ensure that it will be decrypted even if Adobe send their assassins after you in the future. Just a little bit about how it works. It's based on a principle called identity-based encryption, which works with some magic math that I'm not going to go into the details of, but in principle, as I said before, the DRAM network emits a signature at given epochs. So we've got epoch 1237 at the bottom. Those epoch numbers are predictable in advance, so we know that tomorrow at midday the epoch number is going to be this, and therefore we know what message is going to be signed. And as a result, we can use that message as kind of like a public key, and the signature that is emitted at that time is a private key. So we can encrypt message with the round number, we can decrypt it with the signature at that epoch. So a little bit like traditional asymmetric encryption, but with a twist. So on top of that, we built a dead man switch using time lock encryption. The focus there was actually for vulnerability reports. So that's live. You can use that now. We presented it at DEF CON, MCH, a whole host of other things. And that was very cool, even if the UI is a little bit ugly. But there are a few problems with this solution. Firstly, DRAM only tracks time. So, for example, if you wanted to release your big trove of information on some other details, such as going to prison or getting killed, not going to work very well. You also can't stop a timer. So once you've encrypted something and publish it to the world, it's going to get decrypted whether you like it or not. So you can't really have any second thoughts. And additionally, you kind of got to trust at least a majority of the nodes in the League of Entropy are not misbehaving, which by and large, pretty good assumption, but depending on your threat model, that might not be enough. So we thought about recently, what if you could encrypt things rather than time, and rather you could encrypt to some set of conditions. So here we've got a message, hello world. Ooh, some of my graphics have disappeared. What a disaster. But in essence, what if we could set the conditions as a message rather than a round number? So for example, is the sky blue? If the sky's blue, I want my message to be decrypted. Oh, here's a lovely ciphertext. Ooh, my graphics have returned. Wonderful. So we can then ask some committee similar to the League of Entropy, what color is the sky? They say it's gray. They emit a signature to that effect. I can't decrypt my ciphertext, but if I ask them what color is the sky and it is blue, just like my ciphertext has been encrypted with, then ta-da, we've got this wonderful private key basically to decrypt the message. So with that in mind, last week we launched a Decipher network. It's built on the same primitives of DRAM, but it's a bit more programmable. You can come up with any conditions you would like to encrypt or decrypt a message to. And we're building a new deadband switch at the moment that is a little bit better. Firstly, you're going to have lovely UX, even nicer looking UI, hopefully. Because whistleblowers don't all have to, they can't all be Edward Snowdens. Some of them are not going to be technically capable. Also, you can choose your own committee. So rather than trusting the League of Entropy, you can trust whoever you'd like to trust. And just like DRAM, it's going to be open source and freely available to everybody. So thank you very much. Hopefully everyone getting the beer now. I haven't taken too much of your time, but I'll take questions if anyone has them.
Yes, thank you very much, Patrick. Big round of applause, guys. Are there any questions, by the way? Any questions? No? Everyone just wants to go drink, I guess. All right. Yeah, so for the last time, thank you very much, Patrick. And thank you all for today. And see you all tomorrow for the last day of ETHDam Amsterdam. Let's take care. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.